Hello there. Welcome to Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. That's me. I am so glad that you are here tonight because, you know, I I love my time in Scotland. I love the people that I know there. I just am always enthralled to get to spend time with them. And my guest tonight is one of my favorite people there. He is brilliant, he's kind, he is a strong family man. He's been writing since he was 12. He is a brilliant author and he's a professional medium. But first, I just wanted to let people know that I did not realize that this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I had to go and do some blood work and stuff. So they said, well, why don't you get your mammogram? And let me tell you, I am just as adverse to getting the girl squished as anybody else is. But you have to do that. You have to do that for your family. You have to do that for your kids, your grandkids. You want to be able to go and watch them play ball while you sweat out in the hot sun. It is one of the things that we do not just for ourselves, although that is the primary, but we do it so that we can be with our families going down into history. I want my grandchildren to be able to play with me and I want to watch them grow up. So squish them, ladies. It works. And that being done, that's my PSA for the day. Now, I want you to meet my friend Lee Dunn. Lee is just fantastic. He is kind. He is nice. He is a professional medium. He works with Scottish Paranormal, Haunted Scotland. And Lee, I'm so glad that you're here tonight. Hi.
Hi, Kat. Nice to be here with you.
Thank you. One of the things that always has struck me, and we haven't really spent that much time together, but you're so calming, you're so kind, your 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 gifts are really, to me, fascinating. I'm around a lot of psychics, and to a degree I am one. I am not in any shape, form, or fashion that I'm aware of a medium. I don't see them often. Sometimes I do. um, I don't hear them like I'm sitting face to face with you chatting, which I understand can be done with you. And I met a young woman by phone here in the US last year who Rick McCollum called me and said, "You've got to talk to this woman. You're not going to believe it." And, he doesn't get that fired up too often. You're his friend too. But I was just like, really? I don't know any mediums that are like that. Well, she called me and she was like, "Well, do you want a reading or you want to talk about being on the show?" I said, "Well, if you've got something for me, then I wouldn't mind having that, but I'm definitely interested in hosting you." And she just went, "Da, da, 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 da." And all of the names that she had were not names that anyone would ever associate with me through social media. And except my dad. My dad was on social media, but just as granddad, not as Gordon, right? So it was really wicked cool. And that was my first experience with a medium like that. And she was like, "Well, that's what I am primarily. I'm psychic as well, but mediumship is my bag." I always thought those things go together. And did I say her name? Her name is Heather Besser. If you find her on Facebook, get a reading. But you know, it's really astounding what all is open to you as a medium, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things people quite often ask, "What's it like being a medium?" or "How do you switch off? How do you turn on?" When actually, I don't really know any different because it's just been there for quite a number of years, as far back as I can remember. So I can't differentiate between what that's like and what others would perceive as normal. It's just the way things is.
Okay. So, was this something you did as a child?
Yeah, I think so. So I'll tell you a couple of stories from when I was younger. So my first experience, my first paranormal experience, I guess you could call it, was when I was probably only about 2 years old, and I remember visiting my grandmother's house down in Leicester, which is in England. Live in Scotland now, but family is from England. And I can remember going into this cottage, and on the right hand side there was a sitting room, and I can remember an old man on what I can best describe as a hospital bed. He had an oxygen mask on, and he took it off, and he smiled at me. And we then went into this kitchen. The kitchen was at the back of the house, and I can remember that it's a core memory. It's something that I can recollect the detail of really clearly. And I told my mum and my grandmother this story a number of years ago, and they were a bit gobsmacked. They were actually, well, yes, we were there, but you were only 2 at the time. I didn't know that's how old I was. I just have a memory.
Wow.
You were only 2 at the time, but it turned out that we were visiting that household because the widow's husband had died, and what I'd seen in the sitting room was the apparition, or the ghost, if you like, of or the spirit of that man who had since passed away. So I remember that really clearly. And then I had a whole range of different things that happened when I was younger. And seeing spirit in hospitals when I was in hospital with family members, or with any visits. I met a policeman in the middle of a field when I was about 8 years old, and remember his old shiny buttons and the old uniform that he had on. And I was lost at the time. I was looking for my brothers, and I got lost in the hayfields. And this policeman appeared out of nowhere, told me that his name was George, and basically told me how to get out of the field. So I did that. Roll forward a number of years, tell my parents about this when I'm a teenager, and it turns out that I had a very distant relative called George who was in the police going back into the 1950s and the early 1960s. So had that been the spirit of George in the family? I don't know. But yeah, lots of experiences like that, which when I think back were probably the starting points to the mediumship that I now do. So yeah, I could tell you stories like that all day long.
I could listen to stories like that all day long, Lee. This is something, I guess, because I've had just enough of a taste of it, right? I get precognition a lot. I, I, I do know, right? But I don't see. And if I do see, it's generally in shadow. It's something that it's scary to me a little bit to try to open that up because I feel like I could if I wanted to. But you didn't really have a choice. It just came to you.
It did. It came to me, and I actually avoided alleged haunted locations throughout my teen years because I was scared of it. And
Yes.
back then, nobody was there to help mentor me or explain what I was experiencing. I knew I was experiencing something, but it was quite scary at the time. So I avoided those
It
locations.
is. I mean, because I consciously try not to, because I don't want to see people in their death state. And when we were in Scotland, some of those deaths were so horrific. I knew I didn't want to see those. Okay. I didn't want to see, blood and gore and headless and, in pieces. I mean, I've always been afraid that somebody was going to show me that. And that is a hard and fast rule. If I go into a location, I'm like, I don't want to see a death state.
Yeah.
You can talk to me. You can talk to me. I don't want to see a death state. And one of the things that you were very active when you were a child because you started writing also at 6.
Yeah.
And do you feel like maybe the mediumship, the awareness helps with the creativity?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember Christmas, I was probably only about maybe 11 years old, something like that. I was given my first typewriter, like an old typewriter, clicky keys and
Yes.
movable parts and all of that kind of stuff. And I think for me, it was just a way of expressing things that I was experiencing. So for some, they would perhaps express through art, some through music. For me, it was the written word, and trying to explore stories. And that's always stayed with me as well. And even today, when I'm talking about paranormal experiences, or if I'm on location where there's alleged hauntings, it's very much about the stories of the people that have lived there and worked there and died there. So it's beyond just the spirit that are perhaps haunting a location. It's the background of that. And for me, that fascinates me. So absolutely, and I quite often say to people, I've been researching the paranormal for 30 odd years. And I'll disclose my age. I'm 45. And they're like, so you were 15 when you started paranormal investigation? Well, maybe not investigating specifically, but research for sure, because I'm experienced on all these things, and I'm going to the library, or I'm trying to research as best as I could. Back then, the internet wasn't available, so it was in the library. It was reading. It was with books in my hand, looking at text, looking at literature, and of course, then expressing that in other literature forms that I'm creating. So that was how I got into that. So yeah, it's one of these things that's always stayed with me, and even now. So I can talk a bit more about this later if you want. So I'm writing a new book now, which I call the Codex Spiritum, which is a directory of mediumship and paranormal research and investigation. And I could quite easily create that and put it online and have a searchable database or a library online. But actually, I want to write that as a book. I want that to be a physical thing that you can actually hold. You can flick through the pages. You can look up the index, because that's really important for me. Because
That index is huge.
Absolutely. And that's where I came from. It's immersed in literature, immersed in books, writing and expressing in the written word. So why would I want to change that? That's just who I am as a person.
Well, and I like that. I like to have a tangible, I'm a reader. So that to me is the only way to go. I mean, it's not the only way to go. I know that other mediums, look at us here, right? But I am a reader. I've been a reader my whole life, and I got in trouble because I read so much. It was just like, you should be asleep. You're supposed to be napping. You should be doing this. Why are you still up? I got in trouble a lot for reading. But I like writing too. I'm just about through. And Rick McCullum, if you're listening to this, shut up. But I have been working on a book for 3 years. I've been working on 3 books for 3 years. And I finally, because I keep sticking stuff in my Google Drive. And so I was going through there, purging photos or whatever. And I found about 5 of my stories that I had forgotten about. And they're all paranormal. I've done a lot of stuff. I've forgotten all about that. But I think that's why I like something written, and why, because I have your books on the way, the ones that I haven't already read, because I thought I'm just going to get all of those. And then when I come back next year, not in 2026, I'm just going to bring them with, and you can just sign them. But if you would, please.
Happy to do
I
so.
didn't mean to sound bossy. Sometimes I come off that way.
I will definitely sign them for you now.
So, that's something that, I try to keep up with Gregor, but my goodness, he's prolific. And it's just, y'all are such a good group of humans to hang out with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Greg is the same. Ryan is the same.
Yes.
Rick is the same as well. And you're doing this too. We all have these experiences and this knowledge that we've gained over the many years that we've been doing this, and we want to let others know about that and give people the opportunity to learn from that as well. And I think that's why we all have that interest to put those words down on paper, because we want to express it.
I agree, because how many people have you run into that when you say, "Oh, well, I'm with Scottish Paranormal," or I'm a medium," and they're like, "Oh my God, how do you do that?" And I get that a lot. You
Yeah,
know, how can you possibly do that? It's so terrifying. It's like it's not terrifying. It's like that video that my cousin wanted me to look at last night that we talked about. It's just a woman walking through a family member's home.
yeah,
And the funny part was in the comments on that video, people were like, "Oh, look, that's Pug. She's on her way to the kitchen to get a snack. That's the door she always used." And, different people were saying this, and other people were like, "Ah, yeah, you've got to burn that house down. You need to move." And I'm like, why would you do that? She'd still do that. If the house wasn't there, she would still walk her path, right? They
yeah,
do that?
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, they will continue to do what they've always done, and I'm a great believer that spirit. When we pass, we go into a period of reflection. For me, the meaning of life is to learn lessons, and some of those lessons we perhaps we know, or we are aware of them. Others we don't know. Our soul is learning. We go into this period of reflection, and we reflect on the life that we've had, and we'll do that individually in spirit. We'll do that with others in spirit, so perhaps other family members or friends or acquaintances. We'll connect with their souls and reflect. But we also do it by revisiting those that are still here on this earth plane,
Hmm.
or we'll also potentially visit a location that we've perhaps lived in or worked in or died in, and we'll learn from those lessons as well. And for me, that's why we have those visitations coming back from spirit, because it's spirit learning and reflecting. And
Interesting.
that's my belief anyway, and that's based on the experiences that I've had, conversations I've had with other people over the many years that I've been doing this, and also the literature as well. So that's where I come from with that.
Well, that's really cool. When my mom started to, well, she had Alzheimer's and she was coming and going, and things were kind of in flux a lot. And I had gone and taken her to dinner, and we were talking, and she was like, "Well, tell me about your shows." And I said, "Well, I do Fate Magazine Radio and I do Paranormal Experience." She said, "Don't you hate it when they're just standing there?" And I'm like, "Who?" She's like, "Well, when you're trying to go to sleep and they're all just lined up by your bed." And I'm like, "Really? Do you hate that?" And she's like, "When I was little, I would just tell them I was tired and trying to go to sleep. They needed to go talk to my mom." So they would some. And I'm like, "Grandma, too?" It's the first I knew, right?
Yeah,
And I said, "I don't get them lined up by my bed, but I do get them lined up in my head." you know, so it's just, I don't see them. But then again, I've kind of put out, "Don't show me." So maybe that's why. But
yeah,
I thought that was so weird that at that point in her life was the first time that we were talking about this.
yeah,
And even when she started getting worse, she was still in touch with that. And I thought, this is bizarre. This is really bizarre. Because my grandma, I always laugh and say my grandma was New Age before there was New Age. She was horoscopes and talking to people that had skill sets and stuff like that. So it's just, I don't know. Do you have them line up by your bed to talk to you? I mean,
well, it's been known to happen.
get
Yeah,
out.
if I've been out doing any work with spirit, especially on a location, my wife will always say to me when I get home, whether it's 4 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning, she'll always say, "Have you closed down?" So what does that mean? Well, when I go to work with spirit, I always open up. So that's my way of saying, "Da da, here I am, come and work with me." When I finish, I'm like, "Okay, I'm finished working with you now. Leave me alone."
Yeah.
Most spirit will respect that, but not all of them, because they have been people, and not everybody alive on this earth respects boundaries. So why would they do that in spirit? They just carry on as they would normally. So yeah, I've got home and tried to go to sleep in the morning, at the early hours of the morning, and we've had things happen. I've had TVs come on, I've had lights come on, the dog starts barking. I've even had shared dreams with my wife. I've woken up from a
Wow.
nightmare, and my wife has also woken at the same time and experienced a similar or not the same dream. So yeah, so there's definitely something there, and it's not unusual for me to wake up and like yourself, sometimes I see them, sometimes I don't. It just depends. I might just be aware that there's somebody in the room, or I might wake up and actually see the form of a shadow. And I know, and when I see spirit in shadow form, for me, it's a bit like looking at a sheet of paper. So you can
Hmm.
see the silhouette, but if you turn the paper on its side, it's so thin, there's no substance to it. So
Yeah.
it's almost like they're two-dimensional, this silhouette. So I see that in the room as well. And usually that happens if I'm going to be doing a reading or if I'm going to be going on location. It's almost like spirit know that that's going to happen. And
Hmm.
they come in
They do.
sometimes days before, sometimes even weeks before. And it can build up over time. There could be a pattern. And spirit, for me, always work in a pattern. They don't do anything by random effect. Everything is done in a pattern. So if I'm aware that spirit visits in the middle of the night, then it means that I'm going to get a whole range of other things that happen, to the build up of them making themselves known, whether it's on location or in a reading. So yeah, it is definitely a thing for me, and I know it's a thing
Okay.
for others as well.
Well, I mean, because to me, that's one of the things I don't want. you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah,
and but so far, I mean, the first time in this house that I had somebody just show up, I was meditating and I had forgotten to shield. So I have a specific place that my meditations take me, and it's a very safe, comfortable, happy memory place. And so I was just on the porch swing, and I'm just rocking, enjoying a breeze, and there's mint down and planted in front of the house and whatever. And this long, tall man with a fedora kind of hat walks in, and he just sits on the other end of the swing. And I'm like, this is my meditation. Who are you? And so, but he wasn't intrusive. He wasn't bothersome. I just was like, well, this is new, but okay. I don't know you. And then I started thinking, I do know you. This is the man whose house the front porch I go to belonged to. It was my aunt's dad, who was my childhood hero. And he died when I was in eighth grade. And it was
wow.
the most devastating thing to lose him because he was fabulous. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I'm fixing to wrap this up. I've got to get back to doing things. But I'm so glad that you came to sit with me. And, I was talking to one of my mentors later, and she was like, oh, that was the shadow man. And this, I was like, no, it really was not. I promise. Because I didn't even put Uncle Steve there in my head. I mean, I'm just sitting on a swing on somebody's front porch, smelling the mint and, contemplating. So, but that was my first time to have somebody intrude like that because usually I do guard pretty well. And
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be like to be you and have so many. And I guess my mom had so many, you know, but she
Yeah.
was talking about when she was a child, them doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I say. I think for me, I don't really know any different. In fact, I would probably actually feel like something was missing from my life
Yeah,
if it stopped. And occasionally it does stop as well.
really.
If I'm particularly busy or with life and family or preoccupied, it's almost like it goes quiet. Or there's periods where it goes quiet. It can happen if I'm sick or feeling unwell. If my
Yeah.
energy is low, it's almost like spirit doesn't have enough energy themselves to manifest, or they just back off completely because they recognize that I'm not in a great place to receive them. It doesn't completely stop, but it does. It can go quiet for days or a couple of weeks, and then it builds up again, and some things come in, and it happens unexpectedly. You're in that meditation there, Kat, and you didn't expect to have that
No.
encounter. And that's what happens as well. And I always say this, 9 times out of 10, I'll go into a location or I'll be in a place and I'll say, is the spirit there? And I might see something or experiencing something. It's actually when I least expect it, when I'm moving between rooms or when I'm not actively calling out. And it's exactly the same way in receiving information from spirit. If they provide information, sometimes I hear them, sometimes it's just a precognizance. I'll just know, I'm just aware, or a sentience. And I always say to people, it's a bit like lasagna or garlic bread or spaghetti bolognese. You weren't thinking about Italian food a few minutes ago, but now you are, because I planted that in your head.
Yeah.
So when your brain is thinking about certain things and then something happens, well, perhaps that's your brain that's just giving you that. But when something sudden and random comes in that you didn't expect, then for me, that's likely to be an encounter with spirit, as you encountered it in your meditation.
It was very comforting to me, because it was somebody, that it was somebody that belonged in that swing. So, because we spent many days, many afternoons swinging together. And, one of the things that I find interesting is that was before I set my rule. Because after that, I was like, I got to have rules. I can't have just anybody doing this. And they don't always show me, but a lot of times there's a physical manifestation, especially if I'm on an investigation. Do you have that happen? Like something happens that lets you know someone is there without seeing them, or do you just generally see them?
Yeah. So I'm a great believer in spirit guides, whether it's a universal guide, whether it's the universe itself, whether it's a family member or a loved one. And I used to do this thing. I don't do it quite so much now, but I used to do this thing when I was going on a location. So I would be driving from A to B, and I would quite often say, as I'm opening up, if spirit's with me, if my guides are with me, show me a yellow car. So a yellow vehicle. I want to see a yellow vehicle. It doesn't have to be a car. It could be a truck or a van or some other kind of vehicle. I say, show me a yellow vehicle. And when I see that, I will know that you're with me. And usually I would. And yellow vehicles in Scotland are not that frequent. They are there, but you don't see them frequently. Or you didn't back when I did this anyway, perhaps more frequently now. Right. But I would see that. So I would look for those signs. And then when I'm in location, I would ask spirit to give me certain signs and symbols. A lot of the things that I experience are signs and symbols that I can associate into messages. And I've worked for a number of years in that way. One of the tells, in fact, I've got two tells. There's one that I experience and one that other people see me doing, and I don't realize I'm doing it. I go cold on the back of my neck. So if you imagine like dry ice on the back of your neck, so it's not wet, it's just cold. When I feel that, I know that spirit is coming around me, and I know that spirit is manifesting to do something, whether it's to let themselves be seen or heard, or whether physically going to interact. But my friends and those that know me well will also see me fidget. So I don't know why I do this. It's like my hands go a bit like this, and they'll say, you're picking something up. And I haven't even said anything, but they'll just know by my face or by me doing this that something's happening. So there's little tells and little things like this that I do consciously and subconsciously when spirit connects.
I do the fidget thing.
Oh, do you? Right, that's interesting.
I do. And it's almost like an anxious fidget. It's like, I don't know. It just is. But the strangest thing I've had happen was doing a investigation, and I told there was a soul collector kind of ghost at this site, and all of the other spirits there were just like, oh, no, we can't do anything. And I was just like, you can do something because you're human spirits, and so is that. And the only thing that has any dominion over you is God. So if you want to leave this structure, you can leave. And they were all like, oh. And then they were like, well, okay, you know, and whatever person that was, I mean, I got rushed. Like my hair blew back, everything did. And it was funny because we were filming, and I had a gentleman sitting on either side of me, and they were gone. And I'm like, you just left me? Really? You left me? And it was, that was the most physical, tangible, physical thing that had happened to that point. And it wasn't scary, but it was upset. And it was not really a cold wind, it was just wind. And it felt kind of like a breath, but it was just like, it reminded me when I saw the movie years later, um, in Harry Potter, when the Dementor goes through him. When is it the Dementor or is it the Dark Lord? But anyway, when that goes through Harry Potter, and it's just like that kind of thing. And I was just like, glad my big strong men stood right there with me through the end. I still razz them when I see them about that. But but they were taken aback by, I was taken aback by that. I did not expect, I knew it was getting upset because I was telling them they could go. But for that to happen surprised me. Kind of cool, but kind of surprising.
Oh, they do like a surprise. Did you visit the Niddry Street vaults in Edinburgh when you were over? Did you have the chance to visit the vaults?
I did go in the vaults the first time,
okay,
but I didn't really understand the draw for them because I really like to go into places kind of cold.
Yeah.
And because this was supposed to be an investigation, I didn't know it was just a tour. And so I didn't know very much going down there. And I got more in the actual living environment than I did in the underground.
The vaults, yeah. The reason why I'd asked that, I quite often tell this story. The story, it wasn't that long ago. Can't remember exactly how long, maybe a few years ago now. Occasionally I scream on location when spirit takes me by surprise, or if I see a spider, but that's a conversation.
Spiders are a given.
Yeah.
God help them if there's a snake.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
out.
definitely. Demonic entities any day, spiders no.
Yes.
But yeah, but I was at the Niddry Street vaults, and we had there was a large group of people there. It was a public event. There were probably about 20 people. And there was one young lady, I would say maybe 20 years old thereabouts, and she was supposed to come with her friend, but her friend never turned up, so she was by herself. And I always like people to have a good experience on location, whether anything paranormal happens or not. And I could see it by herself. I said, I'll tell you what, come and spend some time with me. You can buddy up with me. Come round with me. I'll tell you what's going on, and just making sure she was okay and she wasn't by herself. Well, anyway, in hindsight, telling her to come next to me as a medium when things quite frequently happen was probably not the best idea. Oh. So here we are together, moving up this corridor, and it was a second. It was literally a second in front of us, maybe half a meter away, is this massive silhouette of a man, well over 6 feet tall, so really, really tall, really broad. And you could see him. He flashed in front of us for about a second and then disappeared again. Now, at that point, I was a bit taken aback because I didn't expect it. And I'm like, oh, but I didn't scream at that point. But she did. And she grabbed my arm. She saw him, and it was a male. She saw him at exactly the same time I saw him. She grabbed my arm and she screamed. And because she did that, And because it's human nature to copy those kind of things, I screamed as well. And everybody came on and it's like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? And we're like, oh, we've just seen spirit. We've just seen spirit. And she didn't let go of my arm for the whole night. I actually had bruises on my arm the
Oh
next
my
day.
goodness.
And I never saw her again anyway, bless her. But yeah, so spirit have the capacity to take you by surprise, even when you are asking them to do something. And I always laugh when people are like taken aback, and even myself taken aback, because it's like, well, you're asking them to do something, and when they do it, why would you be surprised? Because you've asked them to do something. But yeah, they
Yes.
can definitely do that. So watch out.
Well, and it's like we don't really think we're going to get our request met.
No.
It's that's crazy to me because I do that. I don't ever know if I'm going to experience something or not. And when we were at Temple this year, and I was so pulled around to the back of that structure, and I kept sitting there, and I had my thermal imager, I had it up, and I'm thinking I'm seeing stuff, and I'm just like, oh, maybe I'm just wanting too much. I'm gonna quit this. I'm gonna go around with everybody else and just chill. And I couldn't leave that alone. And a lot of times, if something is pulling me that hard, it's not always a good thing, which you well know. It took me a while to learn that. But I was I was like a dog with a bone. I could not let it go. And finally, you were so patient because I went scurrying around. I was like, can you please come down here with me? And you were so
I
nice.
remember.
Huh?
Yeah, I remember it clearly.
And it was so wild because I thought it might be an animal, but it just felt like a man. And so then, were you still down there with me when that dog came up,
Yeah,
came
that's right. I
walking?
remember that. Yeah, along the back part. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I hadn't seen a dog. I had, because we could hear them walking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, well, maybe it was that dog. And it's like, no, wasn't that dog. But I want to say hi to April in chat too. So she's nice to see her in there. And Lori is there. Lori is thrilled that you're here, just so you know.
Aye.
But that to me was one of the most interesting things because it was so primal. And then everything else was so ancient. And that's one of the things, I don't know. Have you been to the States? Have you
I've
been to the
not,
United States?
not yet.
You're due.
Mm-hmm.
Our forests and stuff are not like when we were driving into good Lord, the one that's Mingus, which
Oh
by the
yeah.
way, I found a Mingus Creek here that's spelled Mingus. So I took a picture of that just for Greg. But and for everyone listening, if you've seen it in a sign or something, you're going to say Menzies, but it's Mingus when you're there. The forest as you're driving through there it is primeval. It is ancient. The needles on the trees are like huge in length. And I was going through some of my video from that the other day and I thought, oh, look how beautiful that is. But when you're in an outdoor environment, or are you often in forests and stuff when you're out? Because I feel like there's a lot in your forest areas, in your natural places.
Yeah, absolutely. And it happens all the time. Even if we're in a castle or in another building or another location, there's always something connecting to the land, whether it's ley lines, the energy
Yeah.
of the land, something that's happened on the land, buildings that have been there before the 14th century castle, something even older. And not that unusual to get connections to do with the Romans and potentially even going further back to Pictish times. So absolutely, the land itself, the woodlands, the forests, lots of energy, lots of things going on there, and just as active as the buildings themselves.
I would think so. And there is Rick McCollum in chat. Hello, Rick. But I think that it's so much fun because, like I said, we don't have anything that old. April says, let me read this. Oh, so April is a really great mom, and she has all these children. They're great too. She says that when camping in a state park this weekend in Micah, saw a tall dark building in the being in the forest and do a picture of what he saw. And she sent it to my friend Denise, her cousin. And April, was it a human figure or was it an animal figure? We'll wait on that. But I was just curious because I know kelpies are in the water. I know fairies are in glens and pretty much anywhere because they are here. But do you have anything? Have you come across anything when you were in an outdoor environment that you felt was like, oh, this is really strong and I'm not sure what I think of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I always refer to them as elemental energies.
Mm-hmm.
But don't get me wrong. There's human souls and human spirit in those locations as well.
Sure.
But there's something else out there as well. I call them elementals. Whether you want to call them fairies, leprechauns, trolls, quite often captured in folklore and
Yes.
historic tales. So those kind of energies, yes, I've encountered them before, without a doubt.
Was there something in particular that took you aback?
So I'll tell you a quick story of building.
You can tell me a long story. Everybody's loving your accent anyway.
Yeah. Oh, good. Building. So I did an investigation at an old tower house. It's a 14th century tower house, so dating back to the 1300s in Scotland. And I was there with a couple of friends. In fact, Linda Whiteford, I think you know Linda. So I was there with Linda and a couple of other friends, and it was the start of a new year. There was a ground frost. There's been a little bit of snowfall. There was old-fashioned street lamps winding down a driveway. There's a cottage. There's this old tower house, which is a tower which is 4 stories high. And it was a scene like out of the Chronicles of Narnia and The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Oh, yes.
It was magical. It was magical. And we stayed in the tower house, and it was the most bizarre energy. The land itself in the tower house, it was just really strange. And I'll cut a long story short because I could talk about this all night. Each floor in the tower house had an internal phone system. So you can't phone outside of the building. It's literally like an intercom. So you can talk from one room to the next. Internal only. And there was about 5 or 6 of us there. We're in the 3rd story bedroom, and the phone starts to call us. The phone's ringing. And it's like, well, that's odd because there's nobody else in the building and we're all together in this one room. So everybody's like, who's going to answer that? And I'm like, I'm not answering it. So anyway, somebody else answered the phone. And you could hear this growl down the phone. So my friend slams the phone down, and we're all a bit like, oh, that's a bit weird. And, you get to a point in an investigation, don't you? Sometimes you're like, time for a break. Let's have a break. This was one of those times. Let's have a break. So a couple of people went down to the 2nd floor, which was where the Great Hall was. Myself and somebody else went down to the basement, which is where the kitchen was. And we were making coffee and tea, and I said, I'm going to call that bedroom back on the phone and see if anybody answers it. So I phone it, and it's engaged. It's like, that's strange, that's engaged. So I put the phone back down in the kitchen, and then the phone starts ringing again, and like, oh no, this is bizarre, something's going on. But the other thing as well is the place was covered in dead flies. There was flies everywhere, dead flies, and we all felt really odd. We stayed the first night. It was a 2-night event. The first night we all slept in separate bedrooms. In the middle of the night, I could hear children crying. I was aware of a presence in the room. There was a lady at the bottom of the bed, talking of people being in the bedroom at night, so the bottom of the bed, spirit of this lady. But we also had these strange wet footprints on the stone staircase. And we were out in the grounds. There was a stream under the ground. The land itself felt really bizarre. Anyway, we captured all of this. And I sent the case to a demonologist friend. And he looked at it, and he actually thinks that we had an elemental energy, and possibly the elemental energy of a troll. And it turned out that there's a what we in Scotland we would call a burn, which is a small stream. So there's a stream under the tower house. The tower house is built upon this, and we think there was a water elemental or a troll, because when we were doing the investigation, I'm also seeing, and I'm seeing this psychically, like a washing line that you would hand your clothes you're washing on, but I'm seeing animal skins hanging from it, and I'm seeing this little man with wooden teeth and a knife, and he's holding it up at me, and I'm thinking, this is the troll. This is the troll that my friend Chris had spoken about. So, just really, really strange and bizarre. So, yeah, I've encountered energies like that, land and building, non-human souls and non-human spirit are definitely a thing. They're quite rare, but they are out there for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, relevant to kelpies and trolls and fairies that are, elemental spirits and stuff. When I was there the first time, I bought children's books for my grandchildren and brought them home. And I'm so glad that I read the first because the stuff that y'all write for your children is terrifying. It was so funny. One of them was on kelpies, and I knew the history of kelpies, but I didn't think that a children's book would be full descriptions of what kelpies do. And so they're sitting in my dresser in one of the sideboard cabinets, because I'm like, no, I can't read these to these children. So maybe when they're teenagers, but I was just, the trolls featured largely in one of them, but I just thought, these are not children's books. I guess they are children's books there. But no wonder you're all full of, whimsy and mystical things. You have to learn that to protect yourselves. So
yeah, definitely. And I always say to people as well, even if you've investigated or been to a location many times before, there's always the opportunity to encounter something new that you haven't encountered before. You have to be prepared for that.
Greg always laughs at me because he's like, that's so far. Y'all don't have a way to go that far. I'm like, trains. But you have to find trains that stop where you want to. You have to go where the trains are or the buses. But I sent him a thing and said, how do I get to Orkney? So is that how you say that? Orkney?
Yeah.
But I was like, how do I get there? And I know that poor Greg Stewart, every time he sees a message coming through from me, goes, "Oi, no, what is she wanting to go do now?" But your country's so beautiful, and you have so much cool stuff to go and investigate, and you have so many legends, and you have so much rich history. Do you, when you go to a battlefield, do you see the battle?
Yeah, I've had that before. Not necessarily seeing it happen, but being aware of something that's happened there. So perhaps I'll see things associated with a battle. So I might hear noises or screams, the shouts. So you can imagine the amount of noise you would have had on a battlefield, and not battlefields with musket and gunpowder, battlefields with axe and sword. And I have seen apparitions on battlefields, but only split seconds. I haven't seen full formed apparitions on a battlefield. But sometimes it's, you can just stand in there. It's just the energy of the place. You can feel it. Feel like there's a place near where I live called Sheriff Muir, and it's up in the hills. And I quite frequently go there with the dog. We'll go for walks and things. And there was a new area that I'd never been to before. And I'm walking around and I'm seeing that stuff. I'm seeing things like blood. I'm hearing noises. I'm aware of a man following me in spirit. And I'm there with my wife. And my wife, she doesn't want to know about this stuff. And I'm like, there's a man following us. I can hear men talking. And she's like, da, 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 da. I don't want to hear about it. She doesn't like that sort of stuff. And anyway, it turned out there'd been a battle at this particular piece of land. And I didn't know that. So I'm getting this stuff, and you'd mentioned earlier, Kat, that you like to go into locations cold without actually knowing any of the history. And I'm exactly the same, because I think if the more you know about a location, the more preconceived ideas you have of the things you might encounter. I prefer to go in and know nothing about it and just experience it for the way that I experience it. And that was a classic example, going into a battlefield and experiencing something that I didn't expect because I didn't know it was a battlefield.
I had unexpected stuff happen at Culloden, and it hurt. I was like, I've seen it. I'm done. Thank you very much. But it was, I had 2 experiences while I was over there this time. One of them was at the Writers Museum, and the other was at Culloden, where I felt physical injury. And I don't do that as a rule. But we were the first ones to investigate the Writers Museum, so that maybe somebody had been waiting for an opportunity to share. That's all I could figure.
Yeah.
And then at Culloden, I had no idea that I was going to have an experience like that. And I decided that I really don't like those because it was like, I'm good, thanks. Do you ever have physical manifestations of injury? You do?
Yeah. Occasionally that can get placed on. Like yourself, I have my boundaries and I have my things. When I'm opening up, I'll say, this is what I want to experience. This is not what I want to experience. And most spirit will respect that. But yeah, sometimes I'll get things, I'll feel stabbing pains where somebody's been stabbed, or I'll feel as if my arm's missing, or I might feel as if something smacked me across the back of the head. Luckily, most of the time, I'm just aware of it as an injury. So it's like, oh, my arm's missing. I don't feel the physical pain that soul would have experienced. But sometimes I do. It can happen as well. I might feel, if somebody's died of natural causes, like a heart condition, I might feel, my chest's really heavy. So I feel things like that. Luckily, it only lasts for a few seconds and then it's gone. It doesn't tend to hang about more than a few seconds.
The one at the writer's house dissipated fairly quickly once we identified who it was. But the one at Culloden, I still have residual from that sometimes. And I thought, this is unexpected. It felt like I got shot, but with something about that big around. Okay. And it was just like, no, I'm not in this battle. I have a side, but I don't tell people what my side is. I just do walk through places. I'm not going to discuss which army is who when I'm on a battlefield. But Liam had told me that at this one particular clan marker that stuff happened. And well, he just said in this area, he didn't say which one. And so he said to let him know if something happened. And it never dawned on me that getting shot was what happened to people. And I still don't know if it is, because I just kind of took that one home with me. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. But now I'm here, I feel like I can do that. But it's amazing. And there's so much rough and scary history in some of these places. Some of the battles are from primal time period, primeval times. And now, you have the Jacobian stuff historically speaking, is rather young, for the history of Scotland. And is that where primarily the period that you feel when you're out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So normally the kind of things that I would get will probably be 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, and thereabouts. I don't tend to go much earlier than that, though it can happen. So earlier on, I was talking about the soul going into a period of reflection. So for the vast majority of souls, I think that you would reflect on the life that you've had. Some it would happen really quickly, maybe 50 years, 100 years, perhaps a couple of 100 years. But for the majority, after a few 100 years, they've learned those lessons, and something else happens. You stay in spirit, or you reincarnate, whatever your belief system is. Something else happens, which is why I always say that that's, for me, one of the likely reasons why you don't see many spirits going back to like the 900s or 850 or 750 or
Right.
early centuries, because they've already reflected and gone back. So that's from a spiritual perspective. But from a haunting perspective and a ghost, and I always differentiate spirit and ghost differently. So for me, a spirit is an intelligent soul that can interact, whereas a ghost might be a manifestation of residual energy, for example. So your battlefield is a classic example. Stone tape theory, or an imprint of energy for a tragic circumstance which has captured that. So you might be experiencing, for example, with the gunshot, spirit might be giving you that because they're reflecting and thinking of this, so you're getting that. Or it could be that you're picking up on the residual energy of a tragic event, so you're feeling that residual energy. So there's two different things going on. So the residual energy for me can be much earlier. You could be going back hundreds, maybe even thousands of years with residual energy. But for spiritual energy and encountering active spirit that are intelligently haunting, for me it tends to be much more recent.
Yes.
Yeah. And you spoke about the rich history in Scotland as well. And I will confess, I've not been to Orkney, and I've not been to the Writers' Museum either. So I'm incredibly jealous. But
You've got to go.
I live in. I know I need to go, but I live in Scotland, and I've just not had the time to go to all of these places, because you're right. On the doorstep, there's literally places 5 minutes down the road. So I've still got quite a lot to see. So the next time you're over, we'll do some together.
I would love that. I'm all about getting new experiences and seeing new things. And April has when someone dies, can they broadcast their instant death experience to someone in the past, present, or future?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Which way would you? The past is an interesting one. Greg and I quite often have a debate over time travel, but again, that's a conversation for another day. But I've encountered spirit, and they can show themselves in different time periods as well. So, and I've also had spirit appear in black and white. So yeah, I do think that they can broadcast, they can connect instantly, they can make their passing known to others, and they can do that in different time periods, or what you'd perceive as a different time period. Absolutely.
Who would they be interested in showing that to?
So I guess it depends. So loved ones, perhaps, or if there is somebody close by whom is open and sensitive. I always say spirit are like water. They take the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody close by, spirit will be like, oh, they can experience something that I can give them. I want to communicate. So you might pick up on that. You don't necessarily even have to be connected as a family member or a friend or an acquaintance. So yeah, it could be anybody that's close by, or it could be a loved one, and they want that loved one to know that they've passed, and lots of different reasons as to why that might be the case.
She saw my dad when she was 13, but he didn't die until she was 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible.
That would be clairvoyant.
Yeah, who has the authority or the expertise, I guess, to say yes or no to these things? You have to be open minded,
You
and
do.
you know, the vast majority of people watching this have probably had some kind of personal experience or interest. So yeah, so anything could happen, and I've had spirit connect before they've passed over. I did a reading for somebody once, and her son came through, and I spoke about a son and gave the name, passing details. They'd been in a traffic accident, all of those kind of things. Anyway, at the end of the reading, so this is about 30 minutes, 40 minutes long. At the end of the reading, she says, I really appreciate that, but my son's not dead. He's still alive. So I'm like, oh. Well, so I'm instantly
Oh,
thinking, I'm a bit of a rubbish medium then. But she's like, no, everything you got was spot on. It turned out her son had been in a road traffic accident, but was in a coma. And he was physically alive, but
oh
the
my
doctors were
gosh.
about the doctors were about to switch off the machine, which is why she'd got the reading. So for me, his body's physically alive, being kept alive on respirators and machines, but his soul had already passed across to spirit. So that actually gave her an incredible amount of comfort, because what I described was basically what she felt. She knew that her son was away, that he was no longer there. So
Yeah,
so you know, April's experience of seeing connections to do with her father before his passed, absolutely that could have happened.
that's so interesting because you don't think of, or I don't envision that being a thing. So I'm glad
Yeah,
that you explained that.
yeah. Yeah, and I mentioned earlier on as well about seeing spirit in black and white, and I'll tell you this story as well. So this was another reading that I had done. A lady in Stirling, so central Scotland, not far from where I live, and a man came through. If I recall, I think his name was Stuart. He was a grandfather that came through, and I was describing him, and I could see him, but it was black and white. And I'm like, I don't know why. This is the first time I'd experienced spirit in black and white, because normally I would see them in color. If I
Sure.
see them, if it's not a shadow and I see the physical features, it's in color. So I'm like, well, I don't know, his band's in black and white. So I'm describing them, and she says, "Oh, wait a minute, I'll go upstairs." So bum 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 bum. She goes up the stairs. I can hear something happening. A few minutes later, bum 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 bum. She comes back down the stairs. She has this photograph. So she'd never met her grandfather. He died before she was born. The
Okay.
only physical thing that she had to show what he looked like, because she had no memory of him, was an old black and white photograph. It was exactly how I was seeing him. So her grandfather had shown himself to me in a way that she would understand, because she could
Yes.
see the black and white photograph. So spirit, but back to that time travel and back to spirit showing themselves in different time frames, or showing injury, or showing themselves younger or older. They can manifest however they wish to show themselves in that moment.
That's fascinating. And, you know, it's so clever too, because um, it was, it's so individual. And the fact that they know if I don't do it this way, they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's just like with my meditation guy. If he hadn't had the hat on, I would never have gone to Uncle Steve, you know,
Yeah.
because that's how he always wore a hat. So,
Yeah.
and Rick says that you nailed it when he asked if you could tell him where the woman's voice was coming to him,
Mm-hmm.
or where the woman's voice was that was behind him.
Yeah.
So, you know, do you ever wonder? I'm going to give you a little razz here or there, but when your friends who know how good you are at doing this, and who sometimes seem surprised when you know things, does that just kind of make you go, really, guys? Or is it
Yeah.
just kind of like, yeah, I showed them, I knew that?
Yeah. I'm just laughing to myself there. So So when I was a teenager, I tried to tell my friends and family as well to an extent, but certainly friends, that I was aware of things. And I just used to go around saying random stuff to them that I was getting, and like, he's a bit weird, that guy. Lee's a bit strange. And then I started to tell some of my friends things that I couldn't know, and I spoke about their loved ones in spirit, and now they are aware. I've done quite a few readings, or I've messaged people that I would know from my childhood that I haven't seen maybe for a number of years, so they know what I do. The more I know somebody, the harder it is, because my own imagination starts to jump in. It's back to that Italian food thing, you know.
Yes.
I did a reading for my parents once, and I was reading my father, and I kept getting moving house, and I thought, Mum and Dad are not moving house, so I never said it. And then after the reading, he says, "I'm surprised you never told me that I was moving house. We just haven't told you yet." So I'm like, damn, because I knew that I was getting that, but because I know my mum and dad, I'm thinking they're not going to move house, so I didn't say it. So it's like going into a location cold. It's easier to read somebody when you don't know anything about them, because you don't second guess the information you're getting. You can just how it is.
You can just out with it.
Yeah, gets me into trouble sometimes though. Yeah, if I'm in the supermarket and I start doing the fidget thing with my hands, and my wife's like, what's up with you? And I'm like, I want to tell that young lady on the checkout that she's pregnant. Apparently that's not the sort of thing that you can do. She's like, don't you dare say anything, don't you dare. And she walks away from me. But yeah, I've got into trouble with that, because you don't know how somebody's going to take the information. Most people are open to it, but not everybody. So you have to be careful with that.
Well, you do. And, you know, my problem is that if somebody asks, then I can't help it. And it's so funny because I will not, like, randomly, I won't just read somebody again. No death dates. There are rules. You can't do this. But if somebody comes up and asks me something, and I'm just like, why would you ask me that? Especially because I don't tell anybody, right? I don't bill myself or anything. And so it drives me crazy. That's when the fidgets start. And I'm just like, why would you ask me this? Well, and I had one girl say, because I really need to know. And I was just like, no, you really don't. You know, no, don't ask me. And it really is, it's weird because you almost are compelled to answer that. And do you get that compulsion?
Yeah, and that's the bit that gets me into trouble sometimes. I'll just know that I want to say something. I was on the subway in Glasgow a couple of years ago, and there was a man. You know what it can be like on a subway. Sometimes you're packed in, and there's a man quite close to me, and I knew that his father was in spirit, and I just had this overwhelming urge. I just needed to say, "Your dad's with you, and he just wants you to know that he's okay." And that was it. And I thought, mouth closed, keep my mouth closed. And anyway, a couple of subway stops later, I'm about to get off the subway, and I thought, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to be brave and say it, but I'm going to do it as I'm getting
While I'm getting off.
Yeah. And I said to him, I said, oh, by the way, your dad's with you. I can't remember what the name was now. And I mentioned the name, and I said, he wants you to know that he's with you and he's fine. Anyway, I get off the train, and I turn just as the doors are sliding shut, and I could see the man standing, like, looking at me like this. So yeah, there was another story with the police, but I won't go into that one as well. But yeah,
Oh my!
So unless you want to, because I did say that I'm happy to talk about anything.
I so want to.
Yeah,
I do so want to.
That. Yeah. Oh, my light's just gone off. It's gone a bit dark. But yeah, so yeah, and you know, you're absolutely right. People come up to me all the time, people that I know, and strangers as well, and they'll ask me to tell them things. And I think sometimes people want to know because they want to know something, but sometimes they actually want to validate something they're already thinking. Yeah. But you have to be careful, because you don't always get what you ask for. And I always
That's
make that
true.
clear to people. You know, a classic example, one of the top questions somebody might ask me is, am I going to move house, or am I getting a new home or a new car or a new job? And I'm like, sorry, no. And they're like, oh. And I'm like, well, you did ask me, and I told you you're not getting one. You have to wait for another 2 years before you get the house that you want. And they're like, oh, right, okay then. And they get a bit annoyed because that's not the answer they wanted. They wanted me to say,
Yeah.
yeah, you get a new house next month. Well, actually, no, you're not. I can only tell you what spirit gives me. Or I might actually say, actually, I don't know the answer to that. And, you know, that's the thing as well, because I'm only human as well. I do not know the answer to every question that somebody poses to me. And, you know, people send me messages, can you tell me where my car keys are? I've lost my keys. No, I don't know where your car keys are.
Get an air
You know?
tag.
Yeah, if Spirit was going to come and tell me things, they're not going to tell me where your car keys are. They would tell me the meaning of life or something much more profound. So yeah, so that is a thing.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I still haven't gotten the meaning of life answer.
No.
So,
It's
of course,
different
I'm
for
not
everyone.
you either.
Problem. Yeah.
Everybody has their own meaning.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
we're either
Potentially lots of meanings, you know. The meaning of
Yeah.
life for somebody there could be 20 meanings of life for somebody, whereas somebody else might have 5.
And April says, or like me, when someone on this show told me I was moving after I had just moved a few months before, and they were right. That must have been you, Lee.
That one wasn't me.
So, but you know, it's so bizarre because I'm not very good at doing my own thing. Do you know for yourself?
Oh well. So yes and no is the answer to that. So the big answer is no. I can't predict things for myself. I don't know why that is the case. I just can't do it.
I think
Probably
it
because I
keeps us
know
honest.
and I know myself too well as well. So it's back to that, you know, cold knowing things. So I know
Yes.
myself too well. But what can happen sometimes, and this is really bizarre actually, and I need to investigate this more. I need to speak to other mediums to see if this happens. Maybe if anybody's watching, that they can comment. Sometimes when I do a reading, or if I'm on location, or I pass on a message, I might say something to somebody, and what I tell them actually ends up happening to me. You know, and I'll just pick. This is just a random example that comes to mind. I might say to somebody, keep an eye on the tires on your car, because you're going to have a puncture. There's going to be a flat tire or a puncture. Literally a couple of hours later, I'll have a flat tire or a puncture. So it's almost like I'm seeing stuff, and because I'm reading them, like that's for you, when actually no, it's for me. So that happens occasionally as well, which can be a little bit, I'm not quite sure if I like this sort of thing.
Well, the good thing is that you don't know it's for you when you're doing it. So
Exactly. Yeah.
you know, that's just kind of the balance, maybe.
Exactly right.
I think that it's so funny, but I do find it very disconcerting and especially if it's not someone who knows me, right? It's just somebody that comes up and says, "Oh, you would know this," blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, "Why would you think I would know that? I am not a psychic. I mean, why would you ask me that?" And especially if it's something personal, I'm just like, "Why would you go away? No, don't ask me this." Because I'm always afraid too that I'm going to be wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't want to give somebody life advice. Do you ever do that?
Yes, but I try not to. And spirit don't often do it either. Not in my experience. I can't speak for other mediums. And you know, the number one reason why somebody would come for a reading is because they want to connect with somebody in spirit. The second reason is because they need guidance. Perhaps they're feeling a bit lost, or they have a decision to make. They're not sure what what they should do, what path to take.
Right.
And you know, in my experience, spirit never tells you what to do, because you've got free will and you have to make your own decisions. And I always say to people as well, I cannot predict the future. sometimes things will happen, and yes, I might pick up on that and say this is going to happen, and occasionally there's nothing you can do about it. But most of the time, actually, spirit is like taking a photograph of your life, past, present, and future. And what they'll do is they'll say, based on the path that you are on, the things that you are doing right now, the things that you're saying, if you continue on that path, then this is what's going to happen. But you can change that path. You know, a classic example, I might tell a young lady she's going to have 10 children. And she might be like, I'm not having 10 children. And she does something about that. And then she only has 2 children.
Right.
But if I hadn't have said anything, would she have had 10 children? Maybe. But because I've told her and I've intervened, it's changed things. So, yeah, so I do give people advice where I can, but it's always with a caveat. And it's always emphasized, you know, it's your decision to make. You have to make that decision. These are possible outcomes that might happen. But also to remember, you know, I'm a human at the same time, and I'm not infallible. You know, I make mistakes. So what I tell you might not happen, or it could be wrong. And you know, that fear that you spoke about, if any mediums out there say I'm not scared or I'm not frightened of getting something wrong, then they're telling lies, because we're all frightened of getting something wrong. I think the real talent, if you like, is actually trying to see beyond that and having the confidence to be able to pass information on, if it's right or wrong. And you know, sometimes you might pass on information and the person you're passing it on to doesn't actually know. You could be talking about somebody that's passed. You know, families are incredibly complicated. So you're talking about a family member off a parent's side, or perhaps they've been adopted. They don't know what the lineage is, and
That would be
genealogy. Yeah. So, you know, it's all of those things. You know, you just have to say it how it is. If the person receives it well and understands it, great. If they don't, move on.
Well, I just try to get out of it. Because I don't have the confidence level to, you know. But one of the things that somebody came up to me and did that about was intensely personal, and I was just like, why would you even tell me that? Much less ask me to guide you on that. No. So, have you ever been, Lori? Did you hear about our experience when we were at Bannockburn? When Lori always asks every time we investigate, do you recognize my energy? It was like, oh yeah, you killed me. So, so she was like, don't ask if spirit recognizes your energy. And she thought that I was crazy when I was telling her that. But not everybody is going to be glad to see you, even if they do. I mean, I'm always glad to see her, though. So there's that. So we travel well together. And we haven't killed each other yet. So, yay. So when you have children.
Yep.
And when you became a dad, this is sensitive. Is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
When you became a dad, do you guide your children based on your intuitiveness, your gift?
Mm-hmm.
Do they listen?
So, first part of the question, yes. Second part, usually no, because that's what kids do. Do they usually listen to the parents?
No, they don't. But then we always look so wise when they get older.
I know.
You have that coming.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think you know I do try and guide them as best as I can, or you know I'll have feelings on things, and there's probably a mixture there of what my own brain is knowing, because I know information and I'm seeing things, and like my logic brain is saying this is how things need to be, or this is the decision that needs to be made. My intuition also sits alongside that, and I quite often describe something called intuitive perception. So intuitive perception is basically your current knowledge, the things that you already know and experience, your logic brain, your conscious mind, if you like, your subconscious mind, all of your senses, so touch, sound, taste, sight, all of those kind of things, and also that elusive sixth sense. So just knowing something or being aware, the gut feeling or gut instinct. When you package all of that together, that's what I call intuitive perception. So it's making an informed decision. And you don't have to be a medium to do that. And I believe that everybody can do it. You know,
I do.
if everybody at some point in their life will just act on a gut feeling about something, it's that intuition that guides us. That's part of being human. I guess the difference with a medium, and for me occasionally, because I don't always get it right, is that I'm probably more aware of my intuition and I try to put my logic brain aside. So it's that whole head and heart argument. You know, sometimes your head says one thing, your heart or your instinct or your intuition, whatever you want to call it, tells you another thing. It's like, which one do you go with? I would probably be more inclined to go with my intuition rather than what my head always tells me.
I would agree with that, because sometimes it's just, if you're too invested in a situation, it's going to be hard to go with your intuition. But that's usually probably when you most need to. And we have another question from April. Do you believe some things are a possible future, but others are set in stone?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So the ones that are set in stone, that's what I call an anchor. So I believe that there are fixed points in time within our lifetime where certain things will happen, and they will happen for a reason. What that reason is, you know, it can be any number of things, but there are just some things that you can't escape. You know, I could talk to you about all different sorts of spiritual theories all night long. I quite often talk about something called a spiritual convergence.
Mm-hmm.
So a spiritual convergence, the simplest way of thinking of that is, if you imagine two, three, maybe four people from different backgrounds and different walks of life. So, you know, perhaps they're on an aircraft traveling somewhere. That aircraft then crash lands. You know, everybody's alive, so let's go with that situation. But they're now isolated, so they're perhaps in a remote area. They're having to survive. That's a convergence, because what you actually find there is you've got different individuals from different backgrounds that would normally have came together are actually now together and sharing a life experience. And that life experience, you know, you're encountering somebody for a reason. That's what I call an anchor. So some things will just happen for a reason, and there's nothing you can do about that. You can't predict it necessarily. It will just happen. But other things you can make decisions on. There will be things that you can control because you're actively making a decision. So if you don't know that you're going to be on the aircraft and it's going to crash, then you can't really say, I'm going to make a decision to go on it or not. You will just make a decision and you're in that situation. Whereas if you're deciding how many kids you're going to have, well, you've got control over that, because you're not waiting for, well, I suppose some people might wait for fate, but 9 times out of 10, you would make a conscious decision to have kids or not. So yeah, I do believe, as April's asked, some things will be set in stone and will just happen, and some things will be controlled. You can influence it.
Well, kind of like the lady that decided not to have 10 children.
Correct.
You know, she had the information that that was what it looked like at that time, and she intervened.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and that's what I often do if I'm trying to give somebody guidance. If they ask for that during a reading, I'll say, well, let's look at a couple of different situations and possible outcomes. If you do this, then Spirit says this is what is likely to happen. If you do this, then this is what is likely to happen. But usually there's actually a third choice, because people are trying to use their logic brain to make a decision. It's like, do I do this or do I do that? It's like, which of those two things should I do? Actually, sometimes the best thing is to do nothing. Leave it for a certain period of time. I always say, you know, you have to put a fixed time on it. Don't leave it forever, otherwise you'll be stuck forever. But give yourself maybe a month or 6 months. I'd say by the end of those 6 months, I will make a decision. And 9 times out of 10, by the time you get to the 6 months, your intuition's already telling you what you need to do. So you'll know straight away which of those two things to do. But 6 months ago, you perhaps didn't. So you have to allow your intuition to build up over time.
well, I'm the world's worst about, if I don't want to do whatever it is that my intuition is saying, I will put it off indefinitely. If it's going to be difficult, or if it's something that I'm intimidated by, which I know shocks a lot of people, that I do have and things that intimidate me. But it's so change is frightening, and making a sea change is very frightening. When someone comes to you, first of all, when people come to you, can you read anyone, everyone?
Most yeah, most people, yes. There are occasions where I can't read somebody, and it may be the energy just doesn't connect or it's not quite right. It's what I call human Wi-Fi. So being able to read somebody, it's you have to have an established connection, but sometimes the connection just doesn't happen. Perhaps the person is really closed off, so you're trying your best to give them information, and it's just like they're just not receiving it. So that doesn't happen. Or it could be that somebody's particularly vulnerable or going through a very emotional time, and for whatever reason spirit doesn't want you to speak to them. Or there's occasionally I'll get like a hand that's waved in front of my face. If you imagine that kind of movement, when I see that, that's my sign from spirit that I need to close my mouth and shut up. It's like, don't say anything to that person, because what you are saying to them, they've got complex mental health problems. What you're about to say to them is they just can't handle it. So not everybody is ready to receive information, so it won't happen, it won't connect. So that is a thing. But 9 times out of 10 I can actually pass on a message of some description. I can get something for somebody.
That's interesting, because that means that your frequencies are just
Yeah.
Can you shut off? I mean, you said that your wife asked you if you shut down.
Yeah. So I can shut off to an extent. It never completely stops. It's more like a filter. It's like I apply the filters, if you like, rather than close the gate. So I can filter things out. If I'm open and I'm in a room with people and I'm like, pick things up for them, I'm like, show me stuff, I'll go around and I'll pick things up. But if I'm in a busy room and I'm preoccupied or I'm doing something else, I'm with the kids or picking something up, I might get less, because I have to be open to it as well. And if I've got the filters on, whether I realize it or not as much information comes through. So there is an element of self-preservation in that. But like we said earlier on, Kat, sometimes just unexpected things happen, and I'll do things without realizing it. I mentioned the police thing. I'll tell you one of the police stories, because everybody's
Oh,
probably
yay.
like,
Thank you.
yeah. So this is one of the times where I've had the utmost fear because of what I've done. So I was crossing the road. This was a number of years ago, crossing the road in the local town, and there's a young lady beside me as I'm about to cross the road. So we're standing at the edge of the pavement, and I didn't even realize I was doing this. I just turned around and I grabbed her by the arm, and I started just lecturing her. I just said, "If you do it, your mum will never forgive you." And I said, the whole point is your mum will never forgive you. And I realized what I'd done as soon as it happened, and I let her arm go, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm really sorry." So I then scuttle off. So I go back to the car in the car park where it's parked, and I'm saying to my wife, "You'll never guess what I've done." And my wife's like, "That's it. You'll be on CCTV. The police will be at the door and for assault and all of those kind of things." Anyway, luckily that did not happen. But the young lady tracked me down. She obviously found out by whatever means who I was, and she sent me a message. What I didn't know at the time is that her mum had recently died. She was really struggling, and she was contemplating taking her own life on that day, and she was thinking about how she could take her own life. So for me to stop her and put my hand, physically touch her, which I would never normally do, and physically touch her and say, "If you do it, your mum will never forgive you." That just came straight out of my mouth without realizing it. So, so those things can happen unexpectedly. I was crossing the road to get my lunch from the local deli shop, the local bakers. I was getting a roll or something. I wasn't expecting that, and it just happened instantaneously. I wasn't open, I wasn't necessarily closed, I was just being me, and it just happened.
That was such a blessing, though.
Yeah, and it happened for a reason.
They always do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I find that they always do.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
Even if you don't always realize it at the time, so these things are said or things are done, and it could be weeks or months later before the consequences of that actually come out. Luckily, in my experience, it's always been a positive consequence, but there's always the opportunity for it to be negative. And I advise many developing mediums or those that are new to mediumship just to be really cautious if you can catch yourself. And this is one of the reasons that I have done platform mediumship in the past. So for the Spiritualist Church or a charity event where I've been on stage, I think the largest audience I've done was maybe 500 people or thereabouts. So I've done quite large audiences.
That is huge.
And I can do it, but I don't like doing it because stuff just comes out of my mouth, and I would be really, really worried about saying something in a public forum that is perhaps very personal to somebody. And my mouth does get me into trouble in those circumstances, which is why I don't do it these days. It's not because I can't do it, it's because I don't like doing it.
Well, that's okay. Stuff comes out of my mouth that surprises me all the time. So
yeah, it comes in. You just have to say it, Kat. You just have to say it.
Well, it always is a surprise. Not always. Sometimes I'm like, well, like I told you, I can't say that. I had a lady that asked me for a reading, and I'm like, she went to my doctor's office. I was going in. I'm like, why would you think I do readings? I mean, seriously. And one of the girls that works with her knew that I was a paranormal investigator, so I guess she thought they went together. But not every ghost hunter is a psychic, just so everyone listening knows that. But it was so funny because, yeah, I went and did my appointment, and I was coming out, and I was just walking right by her. I wasn't going to say a word. I was done, and it wouldn't let me go out the door. And it was so rude because I was just like, this is not me saying this. Okay. You asked for this. And it just, suck it up, Sally. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And so I turned around, and she let me get back to the door. And she said, you want to know about Sally? I was like, there's a Sally? And there was. It was her dad or grandpa, whoever her male figure was, had a truck. He drove a truck. And here, truck drivers are very attached to their vehicles, and they name their trucks. And his truck was named Sally. And anytime when they were little and they would whine about not wanting to do chores or whatever, he would always tell them, better suck it up like Sally. She just sucks that up and gets right up that hill. You better be sucking it up too. And I was like, get out of town. Okay. And again, that was one of those things that somebody asked me. I was asked to do this. And I'm like, I don't do readings. Why would you even ask me that? I'm not that person. Do you see anything here that says medium, psychic, I know things? No, you don't. And it was just like, well, you might see it. You're different. But, the average person on the street is not going to just walk up and say, hello. But that's so weird. When it's weird that it happens to you and you feel like you have to do it too.
Yeah.
It's just, do you think it's because it's such a real need?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I suppose by the very definition, a medium is like an intermediary or somebody that's in the middle of something, the living and the dead, I guess. And I think sometimes spirit can have such a sense of urgency that they have to put information across. You're picking up on that urgency. So it's almost like, you have a frantic spirit, or they're desperate to put information over. Not only are you getting the information, but you're also getting their desperation. So it's like you're getting both of those things. It's like a
The
double whammy.
fidgets.
And that's why you feel that need to pass it on. So it's not my need to pass the information on. I'm picking up spirit's need to pass the information on. I'm just being the mirror for it, and doing that. So yeah, and I think that's why sometimes you get information and it happens. I get information, I'm like, oh, well, that's quite nice, but I'll just walk on. And then other times I'll get information, I'm like, no, I have to just say this. I need to pass this on because it's becoming so overwhelming. I actually did it at there was a psychic show in the local city, Stirling, where I live, and it was another medium that was on the platform. He was doing it was a stage show. I like to go to these things as well. Maybe I'll get a message. Who knows?
Right.
So I'm standing, in the background, and there's a group of women in front of me, and the medium's doing his messaging, and he was brilliant, spot on the messaging. But he didn't come to the people in front of me. But because I'm standing right next to them, I know that there's a man in spirit next to them. And I know that he's the husband of one of the women. I know that he's the father of one of them. And, I knew the connections. And I could see how he was dressed. And he's basically waving at me like this. And he's going like this. He's like, so I know he's desperate to speak to them. But he can't get into the medium up on the stage because the medium's got a queue of people trying to speak to him. So this guy's like, oh, I've got no chance of speaking to him. Oh, wait a minute, there's a medium there. I'll speak to him. It's that path of least resistance thing. So I'm getting this, and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm like, with the people next to me, I'm like, I'm desperate to pass a message on to those people. And I'm like, just do it. And I'm like, I can't do that. It's somebody else's show. Anyway, I did wait until the end of the show, and everybody's departing and leaving. And I thought, I'm just going to go up to him. And I felt really awkward. And I'm going on, and I'm like, excuse me, I just want to speak to you for a minute. And I'm a medium, and I just wanted to, and it all just came blurting out. And they're all like, thank you so much. We really needed that.
Oh my gosh.
We've got a lot of stuff going on in the family. This man had passed over. We really needed it. That's why we came across. We were so disappointed not to get the message from the medium. So not only am I getting the desperation from spirit, that human Wi-Fi, I'm picking up on the desperation of the group of women to get the message. The energy's just connected, and I was right in the middle of it, and that just happened.
That's so neat.
Yeah.
That is so neat. When you did the event with the 500 people, was that like just a gallery reading where it was just luck of whoever got their reading?
Yeah. Large audiences are very different, and I guess the spirit connect and do different things when they come through. I go through a bit of a checklist. Some of them will come in and just give you the name, and that's the worst possible thing, because they'll come in and they'll say, my name's John. Now, could you imagine me standing on a stage with 500 people? Who knows John in spirit? And it's like, oh, I know a John in spirit. So I always like, well, give me a bit more information. Even direct me. Am I in that part of the room? Am I in the upper gallery? Am I in the bottom gallery? Am I on the left? Am I on the right? Am I looking for a male? Am I looking for male? Sometimes I might give them more information. So they might say, my name is John, and I'm looking for Samantha, and she's sitting over in that area of the room. So, you're looking for multiple instances of information to try and narrow that down. They don't always give that. And what can also happen, and this can be frustrating for a medium, is you're getting this information and people they come along to these things because they want to get a message. But when you actually point your finger at Samantha, she freezes. She's like, oh, it's like, oh, I'm like a rabbit caught in the headlights. Right. And, or you'll say something and they're like, no, I don't get that. I don't get that. And actually you're giving them information they don't understand. And afterwards they'll come up to you and say, I've just spoken to my mum on the phone and you were spot on. But at the time they didn't understand the messaging. So, there's a whole range of mixed things going on in those kind of situations.
Wow. I have been in large galleries and I never get selected to get a message, which is really funny to me. But especially when I know the medium who's out there, but it's something that you can feel the need. You can feel the people who are like on the edge of their seats. Lori and I met at an investigation that had a gallery reading with Chip Coffey, for example.
Oh, yeah.
And, because he's like, who wants a reading? And, I put my hand up and he looked at me. He said, this has never happened to me before. He was like, but Spirit is saying not yet. And I was like, well, that's not nice. you know.
Mm-hmm.
But another girl sitting behind us had lost her fiance.
Right.
And it had been like a year and she was still in such pain. And she and I wound up being very good friends. We've traveled um, to a couple of different places together and haven't in a while because she's way up in Kentucky. But it was so bizarre because that was exactly who Chip Coffey was there for, because that spirit needed to get that message to that young woman's heart because both of them were in so much pain.
Yeah.
And so I understood the not yet. So as I'm leaving the next day to go home, he's sitting outside, smoking a cigarette with his friend, and I'm carrying luggage and a ball gown over my shoulder and, heading for the car. And I stopped because his friend is my friend. I stopped to say bye. And he looked at me and he was like, don't you do a radio show? I said, I do. I like it. And he said, well, you should probably be getting ready to be on television. And I'm like, I'm not going to be on television. 2 years later, I'm on television. And I was just like, I would never in 10 million years have expected that to happen.
Yeah.
So it was different, but not yet. It's a
Yeah.
good answer sometimes.
Yeah. And it can be as blunt and as simple as that as
Yep.
well. I remember many, many years ago now, we're talking 25, maybe even 30 years ago.
When you
I
were a mere child.
Yes, when I was a mere child and innocent and all of those kind of things, I went to a white witch and had a reading. And this
Yeah.
is, this is way before social media and, in the internet. And she used normal playing cards to do a reading. And she told me a load of stuff. And I'm like, at the time, I'm like, oh, all right, okay, whatever. Um, Open to it because I was experiencing things, but, okay, we'll just see what happens. But the vast majority of things that she told me all those years ago have came true. And she told me at the time, when I sat down, she looked at me, she looked at her cards, and then she put her cards down and she went, you can do what I can do. I'm like, can I? And she's like, yeah. And she proceeded to tell me all the things that I would do as a medium. She told me that I would investigate the paranormal. She told me that I would be on the internet. Now, the internet was quite new back then, but
Right.
obviously we're all on the internet now. She told me that I would have 11 houses, and I think I'm in house number 10 now. She also told me that I would have a job one day and I would work with David and Robert. That happened. I met David and Robert, were two close colleagues. Lots of things she told me happened. So yeah, it's the strangest thing, isn't it? And I think
It is.
as a medium, you have to be open to those things as well because people will say things to me, and I'm like, oh, right, okay, that's interesting. I'll take note of that, and I have to be open to it because why would I not be open to those things?
Because you know it's real.
Because I know it's real. Exactly.
Yeah. The strangest one I had was a tarot reader in New Orleans. And I'd never had a tarot reading because I don't do tarot. Not that I'm slamming it, but but I wasn't expecting that. So she was like, "Come on, I'll do this." You don't. And I was like, "Whatever. I've got a 20. Whatever a 20 will do. Just And so she does that, and then she starts going on with a psychic reading, and I was like, "Look, I don't have any more money. I don't have anything else to give you, so don't go past what your $20 value is." And this woman, we never talked, we never traded names, we never did anything. She got a little bit out of shape because she wanted more money. And I'm like, I don't have it. I have
Yeah.
no more cash. So as I'm walking away, because it was mediocre, right? And as I'm walking away, I am almost across Jackson Square from her, which is like where St. Giles Cathedral is, that big open area. And so I heard my name, and I turned around and I looked at her, and I was like, I heard you. And she didn't get my name. We didn't get each other's name.
Yeah.
And so I walked back over there. I was confrontational for me. I walked over there. I was like, "Did you want something?" And she just looked at me. She said, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "If you're going to use my name, you need to let me know why. I don't mind answering questions, but don't be directing things to me." And I just turned around and I walked off because she was feisty at that moment. And how she knew my name was her skill. So I was just like, because New Orleans is full of voodoo and negativity sometimes. And I was just like, no, we are not doing anything negative about me. But that was kind of freaky. Oh, have we lost Lee? Can we get him back? Maybe he'll call right back in. In the meantime, we have got here some comments from April. She says that she is honestly freaked out when things happen that she knew beforehand, especially deaths. And I'm going to tell you that we have him coming back. I get freaked out by that too, April. There you are. You're going to have to hang on tighter, man.
I know, that was bizarre. I literally, spirit just came in as that cut off. I've now got the spirit of a man called Frank that's just came in here, and that was totally unexpected. So that was a bit bizarre. So I don't know who Frank is, but hello, Frank.
He wouldn't be an uncle of mine, would he?
All I know is that there's a man called Frank here, and he's basically saying, "See Frank say." So,
hi, Frank.
Is this somebody you know?
Well, I have a great uncle named Frank, and I was just talking about him the other day. So he had a farm, and he used to take us out on tractor hay rides.
Oh, there you go.
So, is that him?
It could possibly be him, but I can't guarantee it or say for certain. All I know is that a man came in and said, "See Frank says hi," and that's the message.
Okay.
So there we go.
Did you see what he looked like?
I can't tell you what he looks like, but I can tell you that he feels quite big because I feel as if I'm getting crowded in. So he's quite a big guy.
Is he trying to get on camera?
He's kind of crushing me off a little bit as he's coming through here.
Well.
Yeah.
Well, if that is my uncle, hello.
Yeah. Did he used to wear a hat? Because I feel as I've got some sort of hat on.
Like a ball cap and...
Yeah, I feel like I want to take it off and just sort of wipe my brow. So
yeah, because he was a farmer.
Right.
So, and that's why he had the tractor and the wagon, the big wagon to pull us in. I always thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I actually, because the road that he lived on was named Frank Doss Road. And so when I was talking to one of my daughter lives out in that area. And so I was at one of my grandson's baseball games, and one of the dads is part of that family unit, I think. So he was like, were you out here? I was like, I was. And, my dad's uncle lived on Frank Doss Road. He was Frank. And some of my best memories were him pulling us around in a hayride. So maybe that's him.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, the only other thing that I can add, and this is, just one of these instances where it's so bizarre, I'll just say it anyway. Are you aware of, did he used to make his own rope? Are you aware? Because I feel like I've got lots of thread, and I'm making some sort of rope with it.
It would not surprise me, because if that's him, he had, including him, either 12 or 13 siblings in that family.
Right.
And each of them had a trade. My granddad and my grandmother each had large families like that, and each child on each side had a trade. We had masons, we had electricians, we had, you know, one had a lumber yard, one made brick,
Yeah.
and that's how they built each other's houses. They all worked together to build their houses. Electricians, plumbing, all of that. So they were both from very large families.
Yeah.
And it was, he was very cool. His son, which was my dad's cousin, also Frank, was somebody that was a lot of fun to be around.
Yeah.
So we were, they were a prolific family.
It's certainly a character, put it this way.
Yes. Well, I hope that's him. I hope that that's who I think it is, because it's just funny, and it could be because I was just speaking of him this week.
Yeah. And that happens as well. You know, you speak about them and they'll come forward.
Yeah.
That certainly happens.
But I will take it.
Yeah. Oh well, that was an expected bonus.
Well, I'm sorry that he was kind of barreling over you. If he is he gone?
He's still here, but he's just in the background. I would say he's quietly in the background, but he's not being quiet. I can't hear what he's saying, but I know that there's stuff that's coming. It's like he's trying to give things. He's trying to sing as well, but not doing a particularly good job of it.
Well, if he is related to me, you got to know he's feisty. That apple didn't fall far from a tree.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've had just the best time with you. You're going to have to let me know if he lets you know that he's related to me.
I will do. So. Well, if he decides to stand over me in the middle of the night and give me any more information, I will certainly pass it on to you.
Well, you'll have to tell him that he has certain hours.
Yeah.
But Tom McNicholas says our background is making him dizzy. That's funny. If he pays attention, he might see a critter in the background too. But you know, I am so fortunate to have you as someone I count as friend. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And thank you for giving me free reign with conversation topics, because I just find you so fascinating.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know,
it's been wonderful to talk to you.
I think so too. I've just enjoyed you so much. And so you are the real Lee Dunn. What is your? I'm trying to pull it off the top of my head.
Lee Dunn official.
Yes, Lee Dunn official.
Yeah.
.com. And you can find all of his books on Amazon under Mr. Lee Dunn, which I'm so glad that you did that, because it's easy to find, because there was another Lee Dunn that was nothing at all like you with his writing. And so I just kept perusing until I found all of them. And I think that you're such a versatile writer. Everybody needs to go get these books. And if you do put together that primer, or, you know, whatever you're going to wind up calling it, I definitely want that, but it can't be too much weight that I can't get it home.
I can send it in the post.
Well, I just, I really enjoy you so much. Do you have anything you want to share before we go?
It's been, you know, it's there's my light going off again. Spirit's
probably Frank.
Yeah, probably. Thanks, Frank. It's been wonderful to speak to you. I think we're probably only just scraping the tip of the iceberg on a lot of these conversations.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, and thanks for those that have asked questions and that have engaged and be patient and watched and listened to me talk as well. It's been wonderful to connect with everyone.
Well, we will have to do this again sometime, because we really and truly, with all of your vast experiences, only touched the edge. So just got a toe wet.
Yeah.
So we'll have
And
to do
I'm
it.
still learning as well, and it's good to learn from other people and hear their experiences too.
Well, you're the only person really that I know that I can share something with and say, "What do you think?" Because my husband just watches it happen and he's kind of like, "Didn't know that could happen." And I'm like, "Me either. No idea." It's just there. So it's nice to be able to bounce things off of you. And I appreciate you being willing to let me too.
Yep, anytime. And I will
And
certainly see you when you're back over in Scotland. And if I'm back in the US at all, then I will let you know.
please do, because I just found out today that I'll See Paranormal is in New Orleans, which is
Right.
only like a 5-hour drive from me. And if I'd known that they were coming here, I would have gone to meet them. So I told them who to get in touch with down there because they were very taken with Madame LeBeau. So I was like, well, let me tell you who to talk to.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
it's just anytime you're here, I just want to know. April said, come to Wisconsin. The weather would not be adverse for you. It's cold there.
Oh, is it? Well, it's cold. It's about 3 degrees here at the moment.
What is
So,
that Fahrenheit?
oh, you're testing me now. No idea. It's pretty
It's
cold.
cold.
Not quite freezing, but close to it.
Yes, well, no, thank you. That's why I come in the summer. So, but thank you again for everyone who has listened to us. We so appreciate you. You're the reason we do this, and y'all be blessed. Have a great week, and just look for the good.
Likewise, you
Bye.
too.